The Oklahoma City Thunder have signed Isaiah Hartenstein and introduced him to the media. Did he reveal that he's going to shoot more threes? What's his role look like? And your summer league preview.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and Inside the Thunder beat writer, Thunder on SI, Rylan Styles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO ThunderPod. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder introducing Isaiah Hartenstein into the media. And so what did he say? He talked a lot about his potential to maximize that as just a 26-year-old big man. What does his role look like? What does he look like next to Chet? Plus your summer league preview and your mailbag questions, all on today's show, which is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down and conclude. The sports, never stop sporting quite like they do right now. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long, by visiting FanDuel.com right now to get started. So let's start with the Isaiah Hartenstein press conference. So the Thunder were able to officially sign Hartenstein on Saturday as the moratorium lifts. And so obviously every deal that was reported from Sunday till Saturday, it was just that, a report. It is not official. No move is official until the Thunder send out their press release that you see all of us tweet out within a few seconds of each other. The deal was official on Saturday, and then shortly after that, we went and talked with Isaiah Hartenstein to discuss, just him signing with the Thunder and all that goes with that. The biggest standout from these two interviews, because we also talked to Sam Presti, the biggest standout was how much that they each harped on development, maximizing, growing his game, and harped on the fact that he's only 26 years old and that there's still, areas to improve his game. Kind of conveying a message of like this is not a finished project, a finished product for Hartenstein yet. And so there's a couple quotes in this realm that stand out. Then we're going to dive into what it could mean. So the first quote from Hartenstein is, quote, yeah, that's definitely something. I think that you're an NBA player. You have to adapt to certain roles, and that's what I had to do in New York. I think that the passing only came out probably last year. So my first year I had to adapt to a certain role. That's something that I felt I can really bring, talking about his shooting, expand my game. And as I was talking about before, just get back to shooting and the aspects of that, because before I was shooting it. So I really want to get back to that. So talking about how that can make him a more versatile player, talking about how he wants to get back to shooting the basketball, something that he did with the Clippers, did not do with the New York Knicks at all. And that was interesting to hear from Hartenstein, because Hartenstein went second from Sam Presti. And this is what Sam Presti said about Hartenstein. He said, just following his trajectory for his career over time, he's been in the NBA. His units play well together. He's got a great mentality for the team. I think his game also makes a difference in that way because he's a connecting player. People want to play with players like that, and he's worked extremely hard to get to this point in his career. He's still very young, so that's one of the things that we're really excited about, is he's a young player that's still developing, exploring his game, and we're excited to do that with him. So whenever you read the tea leaves of these two quotes, it really lets your mind wander to the fact that potentially his game will still evolve and change and look differently in Oklahoma City. And if there was ever an organization who is all about roster exploration, all about development, and all about kind of letting these players figure out what suits them, I think it is Oklahoma City. So when you look at Hartenstein's career, it's been an interesting one to get to a $30 million payday. Like, you typically don't take this route to a $30 million a year payday. But he goes from Houston to Denver to Cleveland to the Clippers to New York, and he won the G League Finals MVP in there. And he just kind of has bounced around a little bit as a kind of a journeyman that eventually found his footing to a long, stable NBA career. With the Clippers, he shot 46% from three. That is obviously a career high. It was only in like 30 attempts total, though. And so it was in his bag. 14 for 30 with the Clippers was something that you like to see as just a wrinkle, right? It wasn't something that propped up his game. It wasn't something that the Clippers relied on heavily, but it was an additional wrinkle. Now, the next season in New York, he did shoot 8 for 37, which, dramatically dips the average down to just, 21%. And then he almost completely eliminated the shot last year, going 1 for 3. And you can look up how many of those were just like half court heaves or buzzer beating heaves, either from the shot clock or game clock. So his 3-point shooting to this point in his career: 6 attempts, 5 attempts, 6 attempts, 0 attempts, 6 attempts, 30 attempts, 37 attempts, and 3 attempts for the entire total season. So the largest output has been 37. That's also been his worst shooting year. But he does have that 14 for 30 wrinkle. And the Thunder do have a couple things working for them. Primarily, they have Chip England, who is the best shooting coach in the world. They also have, a history of somehow tapping into big men shooting potential. Now, Chet Holmgren is an excellent shooter, but he was that way his whole lifespan, right? His high school career, his college career. He was really good last year from three, especially whenever he was rested and things like that. The interesting anecdote would be J. Will, who J. Will could not shoot a lick in college. Like, that was not a part of his game. Very few people envisioned that it could be part of his game. But with the Thunder, he's now turned into that's his second most valuable asset. His first is still his passing. He's an exceptional passer. But the second is a three-point shot. And they've really tapped into that and really tapped into it from, relatively out of the blue. Whereas with Hartenstein, you have a few indicators of like, he did shoot 14 for 30 before. And mind you, that 14 for 30, not a huge sample, obviously. It's only 30 shot attempts, but it was in a season in which he played only 68 games. And again, this is not going to be something that you heavily lean on for a 7-footer. But you have that indicator. You also have, a look at his free throw percentage, which last year hit that 70% mark. For his career, he's at a 69% mark. But most importantly, you have his touch around the rim. On floaters, which is a shot that he really relies on over and over again, he's shooting 61%. So he has really nice touch. So he has really nice touch. He has some three-point production in his past, albeit a little bit murky, like a little bit of maybe fool's gold. And he's coming into an environment that'll let him shoot, and that will not only let him shoot, but kind of reward that shot with quality coaching and with the luxury of development, in the sense of when you hear whenever you hear it discussed, like Tom Thibodeau style, he shrinks his rotations. It seems like he's very much like cut and dry of, this is the way we play. We're going to do it every single night and get ready to just load up on minutes, right? And get ready to play our style of basketball every single night. Whereas the Thunder, even on their way to 57 wins last year, it was not as though they sacrificed, developmental opportunities. They still mix and match lineups. They still mix and match roles for players. So they're more willing to do that sort of thing, even if it might not be the absolute best way to utilize a player in that moment. And technically speaking, sure, they could shrink in the rotation and react to 9 players and perhaps have a better season. But again, the proof's in the pudding of the Thunder, for as much as people might grief it, the Thunder have won 57 games playing this way of elongated rotations and trying to explore different avenues for players to find success. So it's interesting. I think, as always, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Do I think that Hartenstein is going to come in and just start launching threes, and he's gotten paid now, he feels secure, and now all he wants to do is just take 20 threes a game? Obviously not. I don't envision this being something that you look back on and say Hartenstein's completely changed his identity. I also don't think that this is just a complete bluff and they're not going to let him shoot. I think what this is going to look like is closer to how it looked with the Clippers. It was not a featured part of his game. They didn't force feed him opportunities from three. It came within the flow. And you're going to see, I think, a career high in 3-point shot attempts only because he'll be in the games more. I would imagine you'll see a career high in a lot of things for Isaiah Hartenstein because he's going to play games. His highest, game total was last year playing all 82, and he only had 8 starts in that sequence, and he played 19 minutes a game. This past season, he had 75 games played, and he started 49 of them, averaging 25 minutes per game. Minutes per game might hover around 25, 27, 28, something like that. But I think that he'll get more touches and he'll get more opportunity with the ball in his hands, and thus that'll uptick, I think, a lot of different categories for him, including 3-point shot. Because remember, New York, while they played him more, also wanted to reel back in the reins of him shooting. And so the number to beat for total 3-pointers taken in a season is 37. With his first season in New York. I think it'll beat that. Now, do I think that it will just be a demolition of that number? Like, do I think that it'll just be 93s in a season? No. I think that they'll be somewhere kind of just in the middle where at best it swings a game, like a singular game. And perhaps if it's in a big enough moment, we'll look back on that and think that it was like a massive sticking point of his career or season or whatever. And at worst, it doesn't really harm you. Like, I don't really think that they'll let it get to a point where like you're playing him in such a way that it takes away from his screening ability and rebounding ability and connective passing ability. Like, I just don't think that they're going to do that personally. So I wouldn't get too high or too low on the whole 3-point conundrum. I don't think he's going to turn to the next great stretch 5. I also don't think that he's going to not take any threes at all. I think that he'll get to a happy medium. Now, coming up, we'll talk more about Hartenstein's introductory press conference, plus talk about Summer League, which starts tonight, and take your mailbag questions. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Check out FanDuel today because we all love sports. I love sports so much that I never want them to stop. But with the playoffs ending, the games have slowed down. There are fewer games on, and then the sports are not quite sportsing like we all want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets, and that is perfect for me whenever you're in the mood for FanDuel, because all summer long, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost and a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all day, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and go there to get started right now to make the most of your summer. FanDuel is the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball. But perhaps you only love basketball, and that's what you're really interested in. Guess what? Season might be over for the regular season, but you can even bet on Summer League if you want to. The Thunder are currently 5.5-point underdogs against the 76ers to kick off the Salt Lake City Classic, but you can also bet on future bets, such as winning the NBA championship, where the Thunder have the second best odds to win the championship, only lagging behind the Boston Celtics, ranking ahead of the Nuggets, ahead of the Sixers, ahead of New York, ahead of Dallas. They're the second team in the title odds, according to FanDuel. Go check it out today at FanDuel.com/lockdown. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Well, you look at the Hartenstein press conference. We've talked about him potentially expanding his game, developing his game. He also talked about playing next to Chet, and he said that Chet is a high IQ player. He said that Chet's very skilled and that they can play really good together defensively. Two of the top rim protectors on the court at the same time. It's not easy to score on that, obviously. He's really excited about that opportunity. And he's excited about how he said, quote, "I'll have to do a little more of the dirty work so Chet can chill a little bit," as he was kind of laughing at that. And he again reiterated that he's excited and that Chet's one of the most talented bigs in the NBA. And so him and Chet on the court together will be very deadly. And he's excited about it. He just kept repeating how excited he was about playing with Chet Holmgren. This is another area where it's not the sexy, over the top, just flamboyant take. But the truth is, I believe that the Thunder will play these two guys together when necessary. But ideally, we'll let them play separate from each other. Ideally, you'd want to spread out those, as Hartenstein mentions, those two high-end rim protectors. You'd want to spread that out over the course of 48 minutes, a luxury the Thunder did not have last year. The Thunder did not have that luxury of whenever Chet's off the floor, you can still protect the rim. They had to figure it out in other ways. They had to do it more of in a team collapse-heavy style, which, of course, as you saw, leads to some easy spray out to the corners. Like they had to cut corners to be able to negate some of that rim threat from the opposition. Hartenstein allows you to play a tad more similarly to the way you can play with Chet on the floor and try to get out on some of those corner shooters more easily, as you see the difference. And like when Chet's on there, of course, they're still rotating, they're still collapsing, but whenever Chet's on the floor, it's kind of easier to spray out as much as they might still hurt you. We saw that with Peter Washington, saw that with Derek Jones Jr., but it's a little bit easier to manage whenever Chet's in the game. Hartenstein gives you that ability to play that way, so you want to be able to spread those minutes out over the course of things. However, with that being said, I also believe that the Thunder will play Chet and Hartenstein a heck of a lot more than the 2% of minutes that Chet played with Jay will. So last year, Sam Presti at the X interview mentioned how, that they only played Jay Will and Chet 2% of their minutes together. So like that was it. And the totality of the minutes played, only 2% had double bigs. That is going to change, I think. And you have the luxury to change. What I think that Hartenstein gives you is what Sam Presti said at his introductory press conference is that like this team has not sacrificed anything about their identity or anything about what made them a 57-win team last year, but they've gotten more diverse in how they can counter you, how they can beat you, how they can play you. And so now you've gotten the luxury of you can run double bigs effectively, you can match up with bigger teams, and you can just see what you need to do. You can react better to these scenarios. You can still try to play those bigger teams off the floor with your speed and your small ball style and being more athletic. But if that's not working, you now have a curveball you can go to. And if nothing else, you now have a more illustrious rotation to help you cover all these minutes very effectively. It's why the Thunder are the second title odds in the NBA right now, only behind the Celtics, because they can just truly, on paper right now, when healthy, match up with every single team and every single style. They say style makes fights in the playoffs and trying to win a championship. It's about the styles and the matchups. The Thunder have a matchup counter for every possibility. And so that's really exciting stuff for Oklahoma City. Now, a lot's been made to the same point of playing with Chet. What's going to be the role? Is he going to start? Is he going to come off the bench? Can you really pay a guy $30 million to come off the bench? Presti mentioned that, quote, "We don't make promises on minutes. We don't make promises on roles. We make promises on environments." That's what he said. And he later went on to say that like Caruso and Hartenstein, they've not been harping and like asking and demanding any sort of roles. And that's why they felt so comfortable bringing these guys in. I think that it will be a little less rigid than last season, probably, right? Because last season, if those five guys were healthy, Shea, Giddey, Dub, Dort, Chet, they're the five guys on the floor, first five on the floor if those guys are healthy. I think that they'll want to have a lineup that they go to the most often to start games for the sake of comfortability, continuity, and just allowing your players to find a rhythm and understand what is expected of them and their role and kind of their timing. But I do think that they'll be more willing to, even with all things equal, even with all things healthy, I think they'll be more willing to adjust that on the fly depending on the matchup at hand that particular night. And so that's where Hartenstein can come in. I would not imagine that they start both Hartenstein and Chet for the majority of games. I think when you look at the split, the majority of games I think will be started with like Caruso in place of the Giddey slot, and you run that lineup. But I don't think that they'll hesitate to go to double bigs to start games if they need to. But I do think that like the price tag is misguiding people of well, he has to start because he's getting paid $30 million a year. The Thunder, I don't think, will operate that way at all. And part of the reason why you paid him $30 million a year was to do the things we just mentioned before of like you want to, now have your front court rotation ironed out. Whereas if you play them together and they're big men, they're not like conditioned to play 48 minutes. You then have to take them off together, and now you're back to square one, so to say. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage to navigate that with Hartenstein and with Chet and with all those things. The last funny bit of info from the press conference was like, I forgot how it got brought up. I think so. I know how it got brought up. Someone asked him, has anyone from the team reached out to you? And he said that Shea reached out to him, and then he used that to tell a story of like he saw people freaking out on Twitter, like, oh, Shea and Hartenstein follow each other, and he mentioned that he's followed Shea since the Hoop Summit, which is back in 2016, and so like they've been following each other forever. And so Hartenstein got a chuckle out of like people taking that and running with it, which it ended up being that he did sign in Oklahoma City, but it was not as though Shea leaked anything by following him. They followed each other for a long time. Talking about Summer League, there's a lot on the table to discuss. It starts tonight in Salt Lake City. The Thunder will be playing in 2 Summer League games, 2 Summer League circuits, which will span Salt Lake City and Vegas and will go for 7 games total. This is a huge opportunity for development. We're going to get into the roster and to the Salt Lake City schedule and to storylines to follow, all coming up, plus your mailbag questions. But first, one's here right now. Better friends over at BetterHelp. Check out BetterHelp today, right now. BetterHelp is awesome because sometimes, we all have things we need to talk about. Whether it's just something that's festering with you, kind of in your life or whatever the case is. We understand that like you need to get things off your chest. You need to talk about things really, really helpful for you to allow you to talk these things out. And BetterHelp can do just that. BetterHelp is the benefit of therapy entirely online, suited around your schedule. So I think that like sometimes, at least for me, like you can maybe say that like, hey, I could really benefit from talking to somebody. I could benefit from therapy, but I'm just too busy. I can't get out to a therapist's office today. I just can't find one. I can't do any of that. That's the key for BetterHelp. It's entirely online. It's entirely suited around your schedule. It's tailor-made for you. So go there right now, and it's convenient, flexible, and tailored around your schedule. You go fill out this questionnaire. It'll match you with a licensed therapist. You can switch anytime if that therapist is not right for you at no additional charge. So you can keep switching until you find the right one for you for free. And then once you match with that therapist, you can go and start focusing and kind of growing with the benefits of therapy at BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedInNBA. Go there right now today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedInNBA today to get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Well, let's talk about the Summer League roster. Adam Flagler, AJ Mitchell, Dylan Jones, Trey Mitchell, Jack Golke, Alex Dukas, Buddy Boeheim, Maldy Leons from Bradley, who had a good workout with the Thunder, Clarence Daniels, Cormac Ryan, Usman Jang, Keontae Johnson, Kyler Kelly, who played for the Maine Celtics and lost the G League Finals to the Thunder, to the Blue, now joins the Thunder in Summer League. The inverse of this, Jamias Ramsey beat the Celtics in the G League Finals, and he's playing with the Celtics Summer League team. Miller Kopp, Hunter Maldonado, Jaden Shackelford, and Jaquan Walton, as well as KJ Williams. Jaden Shackelford is a excellent sharpshooter. So like that's your roster for Summer League. Salt Lake City will be coached by Cam Woods. The Vegas stint will be coached by Daniel Dixon. And when you look at this roster, this is really for the Thunder sickos. Like this is a very fun roster, but it's really for the sickos. The rookies, of course, you're going to want to see AJ Mitchell. You're going to want to see Dylan Jones. Like both those guys we've talked about a lot on this show. We talked with Adam Flagler in an exclusive podcast on Friday. It was a lot of fun. Go back and listen to that. He talked about, his journey from last Summer League to this Summer League because he got hurt right before the draft last year. It kept him out from the majority of the season. He came back halfway through and helped the Blue win a championship. He also divulged stuff about Sam Presti and about the organization that I thought was really interesting. Go check that out. But Flagler is a fantastic sharpshooter and playmaker from the Blue. AJ Mitchell, electrifying scorer in college. How does that translate to the NBA? Dylan Jones, the unorthodox nature of his game. He is listed as a forward. For those of you that want to cry about guards, he is listed as a forward on the roster. Trey Mitchell, really interesting, like 6'9", small ball center type that I think is going to be very fun to watch in Summer League. I don't think that he'll have much staying power potentially with the Blue, but he'll be fun nonetheless. Jack Golke, this guy could be a summertime fan favorite. This guy will either not play at all, a la Ryan Spangler, or he'll get in there and launch 10 threes a game. He'll make like 8 of them, and people will be clamoring for Jack Gohlke to be a part of the organization. It would be really fun if he made his way to the blue. I'm not really sure what his aspirations are in that aspect, but worth a shot, when we're seeing Alex Dukas from Australia, who played at St. Mary's and shot 40% from 3, averaged about 10 points per game with St. Mary's. He is reportedly signed to a 2-way contract by Shams Charania. That 2-way deal has not been official. Whereas Flagler's 2-way deal that he signed in February, it's a multi-year deal that's already been made official by the team. They haven't changed that aspect yet. If that was official back in February, a multi-year 2-way deal. AJ Mitchell's 2-way deal was made official by the team on Saturday. No official word yet from the team on Alex Dukas. So keep that in mind as you move forward. It is reported though by Shams, and Shams typically doesn't get things wrong. Just make sure that you know that it's not technically official yet with Dukas as you see him play in Summer League. Buddy Boeheim, of course, legendary Syracuse Orange player with the legendary nepotism opportunities. That's a big word used right now in the NBA sphere. Played 20 games for the Pistons last year. Fine shooter. Doesn't really move the needle. Potentially an OKC Blue legend. Who knows? Melvie Lyons. I really liked him at Baylor. Similarly to Trey Mitchell, kind of the 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", depending on where you look. Forward, could slide down to small ball 5. At least he could in college. Can he do that at the NBA level? Who knows? We won't really get that indication either in Summer League, because Summer League will have some of the elements of like the G League where it's like no one's really looking for these stocky, huge centers. And so you're not going to face very many of them. And so if you're trying to gauge the NBA size leap, it's going to be a little bit difficult at Summer League compared to what it would be in a traditional setting. Clarence Davis from New Hampshire. I think he's really fun. I think he can jump out of the gym and really spark transition. I think that he has floor spacing potential. I think he's worth an investment for the Blue to try to see what they can get out of him, especially given his tools of I think he has really good defensive potential, really good play finishing potential, and you have a coaching staff that can really maximize that. But the leap from New Hampshire, of course, to these levels is pretty significant. So let's see what he gets to do in these Summer League sessions and beyond. Cormac Ryan, a 7 billionth year college player. He's been playing since the Polk administration, finished with the Tar Heels. He shot 2 years ago with Notre Dame, 40% from 3. There's no harm whenever you got to fill out a roster, and especially for the Thunder, who's got to fill out like a roster of not only like 18 guys, but 18 guys who you want to play because you're going to play 7 games. Like you need the depth. You play 3 games back to back right out of the gate. So you're going to want some of this depth, I feel like. And so taking a shot on all these guys who could shoot, might not be doing much of anything else, it's worth the shot because we've seen that shooting is the currency of just basketball right now. Moving forward with Kyler Kelly, we mentioned him before. He played with the Maine Celtics last year, was really good for them, and lost in the G League Finals. Miller Kopp played for the Blue last year. Another guy that's a three-point specialist, but not anything else. If that shot's not falling, you've got to really squint to see his impact on the floor. Hunter Maldonado, he was a guy that took advantage of this last year. He came in last year on Summer League, undrafted from Wyoming, made his mark, and became the Blues lead table setter. The Blue played an interesting style. They didn't have a traditional point guard, but Maldonado filled that role and filled it very nicely, engineering the team to a G League championship. Jaden Shackelford, one of the best movement shooters in the G. He's always fun to watch in Summer League. So he's like a Summer League standout where everybody loves him because he can shoot so well, and people just kind of envision what it could look like in the NBA. I love to watch Shackelford. I love to cover Shackelford in the G League. Being someone who actually goes and covers the Blue, he's really fun to talk to, really, really nice with his time. He does not have the defensive chops to play in the NBA, and that's what's really held him back all this time. And so I don't know if that's going to change at this point. Jaquan Walton, really, solid season defensively from Memphis last year. Inefficient score. How much of that was quality of looks versus just non-touch from him because he couldn't score inside or outside the arc? We'll see. We'll see what that looks like at the NBA level, but it's worth a shot because he's really physically gifted in that department for defensively. KJ Williams, the last player on the roster that you don't know about, played for the Blue last year from LSU. He is an excellent Blue big, excellent G League big because he stays vertical at the rim. He really disrupts shots. Might not rack up a ton of blocks, but he racks up a ton of hey, that shot didn't go in because KJ was there and because KJ was vertical. There's not really a stat for that necessarily, but just watching him, that's what you can see. Offensively, really good pick and roll partner, really good rim finisher, but he's been trying to expand his game to go from beyond the arc. He looks really good in warmups doing it. At the in-game level, it's been hit or miss. It's not been steady, and so that's going to be what's going to be the missing key to get him over the hump if he tries to climb the ladder there. Now, the two other names, you already know them, Ousmane Dieng, Keontae Johnson. Keontae Johnson is an unrestricted free agent. They renounced his rights on Saturday to make way for Hartenstein. People took that as being more than it is. All that changed on Saturday was that Keontae Johnson went from a restricted free agent to an unrestricted free agent. That's it. That does not rule out anything for the future. Does not rule out anything for what's to come for Keontae Johnson. That's all it changed was the number before free agent. That was it. Either U or R. He's now a U. I think that he's going to be spectacular in summer league. He was awesome last year for the Blue. He can score inside the arc. He can really splash in threes. He improved his playmaking each game as it went along. Defensively, he can switch. I'd say 2 through 4 he could switch, and he's really physical on the glass. He plays bigger than he is. He's one of those guys that like is only 6'6", but when you watch him, if you did not know his listed height, you would think that he's a genuine, power forward type of guy because of how aggressive he is, because of how physical he is on the glass. And then Ousmane Dieng. Ousmane Dieng entering his third year in the summer league, and I think that there's context being lost in this. First and foremost, is being in summer league for a third straight season a good thing in general? No. Historically, it's not good to see a guy go and be in summer league for 3 straight years. Was this always the outcome for Ousmane Dieng, especially on draft night? Yes. Yes. Like the organization has been screaming from the mountaintops how much that they view this as a project, player, as evident by last season where they just parked him with the Blue and let him work and let him develop. And he's still 21 years old, and he's the youngest player on this summer league roster. Now, with that being said, there's some of the context. He also needs to have a summer where everything from the G League translates to summer league. And that will also get lost because here's the thing. His rookie season, he struggled in both leagues. What you saw from him about, not having enough aggression, not wanting the basketball enough, kind of quote unquote floating around out there in the NBA level his rookie year. That's also what he did in the G League level his rookie year. So he's never been one of these guys who just goes to the Blue and lights it up and plays an uncharacteristic style of basketball. Like you saw from Trey Mann, like you saw at times from Poku. Like he was never one of those guys. In year 2, he made significant progress. And the Thunder were very calculated with his development with the Blue last season. They grabbed him and they kind of made him into this, hey, we're not going to just let you play 48 minutes straight. We're not going to let you just play on the ball for the majority of your possessions. They still explored that aspect of his game. They still got him on the ball, but they had concerted games where they would go in there and only play him in these 5-minute spurts to get used to what his NBA role will look like should he develop into that slot. So they've really invested in him. He's made a really, really positive impact in terms of his aggression level, in terms of putting a chest on guys when he drives, in terms of mixing it up on the glass. He won them a playoff game by soaring up and getting a rebound and getting fouled. He's done all the things. He's checked all the boxes at the G League level besides shooting. You've got to see that translate to summer league because no one is really watching the G League. There's people that are trying to inform you on opinions that aren't watching the G League. So it's really tough to convey that to everybody. He's made a lot of progress, but you've got to start to see it translate. And so summer league, it's not going to make or break what he is, but he's to the point now where he did it enough in the G League. And we mentioned how the summer league will be a similar style to the G League, that what you want to see from Ousmane Dieng in year 3 summer league is that he comes in and he graduates, right? You saw last year, Jada played a half of basketball. Now, be clear. Just because that Ousmane Dieng might not play only one half of basketball this season does not mean anything because this guy still needs development more than J-Dub does. J-Dub really played that half partly because he just demanded to. I think, personally, that's speculation. I think he just wanted to play really badly because he missed playing basketball and he wanted to play with Chet. It was a different circumstance for him. I think all things being equal, and like there was no Chet appeal, there was none of that, I think that you wouldn't have seen J-Dub play, just like you're not seeing Kaysen play. But I think that, me speculating again, I think that it would be something where like he wanted to play really bad because of Chet, and he wouldn't have played otherwise. So I don't think that Us is only going to play a half of basketball like J-Dub did, but I do think that he will play to an extent where like it'll be very obvious he's too good for this level. He's too good for this summer league level. That might take one game. It might take two. It might take, the Trey Mann route where he went Trey Mann, I think, went 3 Salt Lake City games and then 1 Vegas game. But I think there'll be somewhere in that ballpark where he'll look really good. And then from there, like no one's going to change their opinion, nor should you. It's just summer league. But from there, you kind of move forward into the season. Now, where you can get into a sticky situation is like if he does not look really good in summer league and does not look functional, then you start to raise some questions. But don't be shocked if he does look good because he's been looking really good in the G League. So we can talk about Usman Jing, of course, on tonight's recap show of this game. We went a little bit long talking about Hartenstein. The schedule for Salt Lake City, July 8th against the Sixers is tonight on ESPN. July 9th against the Jazz at 8 p.m. and July 10th against the Grizzlies at 6 p.m. To round out Salt Lake City. Then we'll regroup for Vegas. We went a little long today, so your mailbag questions, I promise, will be on the end of tomorrow's recap because it's a summer league recap show. We're not going to act like it's the end of the world or like the end all be all of games. So at the end of the show tomorrow, we will answer all your questions. Therefore, you can still get your questions in either down below on YouTube or you can go and leave them on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. And until tonight, as we recap the first summer league game, be good and be good to one another.